Minimalism has become a cultural buzzword over the last decade or so, largely in part to social media, although it's been around a lot longer than that. You can't scroll through any kind of social media, especially Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, without seeing beautifully sparse, sunlit rooms containing little more than a stylish chair and maybe some kind of fiddle leaf fig tree in the corner. And while the minimalist aesthetic is certainly Instagram worthy, for many the philosophy represents something deeper, a chance to escape the relentlessness of consumerism and the materialistic mindset that burdens us with too much stuff. However, minimalism is not easy. Despite the professed benefits of a clutter-free life, the vast majority of people find it extremely difficult to actually let go of the things they own. From sentimental keepsakes to clothes to books to art to decorative items, we all have things that tug at our heartstrings and make minimalism seem an unreachable aspiration. And why is that? What makes purging our possessions so psychologically fraught with danger? Well, let's talk about that today. For those who have been working through becoming a minimalist or maintaining a minimalist lifestyle for a while now, the things we're going to talk about today probably won't be new. But if you've said to yourself, I could never do that, then maybe some of these things will sort of ring true for you and maybe give you a different kind of outlook on life. The first hurdle, I think, is the strongest. It's the highest. It's the most difficult. And that is the emotional attachment we form to physical objects. As much as we would like to at some point be just simply rational beings like a Mr. Spock or Data from Star Trek, our lives are actually shaped by our experiences. They're shaped by relationships and the memories which often become intertwined with tangible things in our lives. That stuffed animal from childhood, the postcard from an exotic place we visited long ago, Grandma's well-worn dishes. These items act as markers along the way of our personal journey, and they connect us to this comforting sense of nostalgia, and they reinforce our identity, and they play a strong role in our self-narrative. Discarding them can feel like erasing part of ourselves. I had a stuffed monkey. It was a doll, wasn't a real monkey, when I was a kid. And it had, across its yellow shirt, it had the name Mr. Zip emblazoned in big red letters. You could squeeze his wrist and it would make what they purported to be monkey sounds. And I lost track of that thing decades ago. But I can assure you, as silly as it sounds, if it was still around, I would have a very difficult time letting Mr. Zip go, because he is such a strong reminder of a happier time of my childhood. And for those who have experienced poverty or loss or other forms of scarcity, letting go of possessions can trigger feelings of being deprived and uneasy about living. Having plenty of stuff brings this sense of security, even abundance, that's hard for us to let go of, even if we recognize that this excess isn't really good for us. This psychological aversion to perceived scarcity is deeply rooted, probably originating back when survival was precarious, and it has evolved in us over time. My parents both grew up with practically nothing. No electricity in their home, no running water, no car, It was one of many reasons why they left rural Arkansas and went north for factory jobs. They wanted more in life and they wanted more for their kids. And they got the house and they got the furniture and they got the 2 cars and they got the garage, and they worked hard for it. They sacrificed a lot to get there, all in order to make sure that my brother and I didn't live in the scarcity of their childhoods. They were born in the Great Depression, 31 and 32, and the years just before rationing in World War II. Now, my brother and I were not born into money. I don't want you to think that. But we weren't necessarily born into poverty either. My parents were part of the burgeoning middle class of the 50s and 60s. And we grew up taking all those things for granted. So my attachment to the things of life, the furniture, the cars, the clothes, even the food, is nothing like that of my parents. For my generation, the baby boomer generation, it isn't about what we have so much, I guess. It's about the brand of what we have. Our things serve as symbols of achievement, status, and our own personality expression. That sleek designer briefcase we carry to work, or the bookshelves that are lined with dozens, if not hundreds, or even sometimes thousands of books that we will never read again, or those bohemian, funky art pieces that cover our walls. These material goods convey certain messages about our identity and our values, both to ourselves and to others. Minimalists are often accused of valuing an empty aesthetic over meaningful expression. I think that's wrong, but we'll leave that there. Without physical emblems of our interests and our accomplishments, some people worry that their own identity will become less validated. And for others, the pursuit of minimalism is hindered by sheer inertia and decision fatigue. If somebody has accumulated a lot of possessions over many years, the thought of going through every item and deciding what to keep or toss can seem paralyzingly overwhelming. It's easier to simply just shut the door on the cluttered closets and continue delaying the purge indefinitely, rather than reckoning with years or decades of accumulated materialism. Now, I have to laugh a little bit when I think about this closing the door on clutter. Because when my 2 oldest daughters and I moved back to the U.S. from the U.K., we were in a very tiny 2-bedroom apartment, and their clothing was about all they had left from the move. And I remember walking into their shared bedroom one day and having to step over a pile of clothes to get to the bed to wake them up, probably for school. And I laid down an ultimatum. The bedroom had to be cleaned. And so they did. They picked up everything, threw it into the floor of their tiny closet, and shut the door. Problem solved. Our physical possessions also seem to acquire greater sentimental value as they endure and bear witness to the passing of our years, as they endure through our relationships, and as they endure through our various phases of life. That old t-shirt you've had since college, or the armchair your kids piled onto for bedtime stories, your well-dented pots and pans, all of these objects feel like part of the family. And it's hard to discard such faithful companions to your life's journey. And I will be the first to say that it may not be necessary to rid your life of all of it. My father's chair is a prime example. I could say that it would be better to replace it with a more up-to-date and comfortable chair that has more utility to it in my living room. That would certainly be of more benefit to me. But after over 40 years without my dad, that chair still acts as a great reminder of who he was in my life. And it is not leaving. Not ever. And finally, some crave the stimulation and personality that stuff provides. They revel in colors and patterns and textures and cherished objects surrounding them as close as possible in their space. A minimalist home devoid of personal effects or vibrancy can feel clinical and uninspiring to those who equate warmth and creativity and beauty with material expression. Pictures, books, art, decorations, they're all seen as vital elements of cultivating an enriching home environment. And I get it. I really do. And I'm not here to tell you to give it up. Minimalism doesn't have to be monochrome. It doesn't have to be all pastel. It doesn't have to be totally empty. My apartment layout is really, really weird. It was never meant to be an apartment. It was a basement garage. So I have very few walls that actually lend themselves to pictures. And my window and my couch and my TV and my fireplace, none of them sit in the right place to actually look like a living room. If I had the wall space available, I would probably have more pictures, I'm sure. Especially ones that I've taken myself, because that's the aesthetic I've chosen to go for. So while minimalism is sort of touted as a solution to our cultural overconsumption and our sense of a cluttered existence, it's clear that for most people, it's far easier to aspire to than to actually achieve. Our possessions are not just inanimate objects, but oftentimes they're actually cherished companions to our personal stories, and they're outward expressions of our inward identity, our values, our creativity. They provide comfort, inspiration, and meaning, sometimes only to us. True minimalism requires dislodging some of our deepest human tendencies: emotional attachment, aversion to scarcity, or feeling as if we have achieved some sort of self-actualization through consumption of the goods we've purchased. And for many, it demands too brutal a shedding of memory-laden effects and personality signifiers in their lives. Ultimately, that sparse, sunlit, Instagram-worthy, minimalist home is more of an aesthetic aspiration than an accurate representation of how most of us wish to live day to day. And the solution may be in striking a balance, a mindful materialism of surrounding ourselves only with items that truly enhance our lives and letting go of the rest without remorse or a sense of self-deprivation. The goal doesn't have to be an empty room, but it should be an intentional home that facilitates your own personal contentment. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.